Hello, my name is Ray Gibson, and I will be presenting information on the design ethics used in my project. The agenda that we will cover: first, I'll give an introduction to the project, then I'll talk through the ethical impact statement, then we'll talk through ethical use for both content creation and also for user data, then we'll talk through inclusive design strategies, social justice and bias mitigation, and then we'll conclude with the integration of the components to tie it all together to create a comprehensive learning environment. To introduce this project, the project context, the purpose of this project scenario is I'm going to create an engineering course for American and international students, and the primary focus of the project would be creating an inclusive learning environment that addresses representation, accessibility, and cultural sensitivity. The targeted audience for this course is going to be both American students and international military students. They're going to be mid-career students, and then also the target for this is going to be to design a course that accommodates the needs of both domestic and international military students, that foster an inclusive learning environment that promotes cross-cultural understanding and enhances interoperability among allied forces. Some of the learning objectives that we're going to have for this course is going to be to explain the design and construction process, apply principles of project management, utilize CAD, evaluate the environmental impact and sustainability considerations, and then also to demonstrate ethical conduct and adherence to professional standards in engineering decision-making process there. Some of the ethical considerations that we're going to take into account while we're designing this course is going to be, especially when you have American and international students all mixed into one class, clearly communicating the data privacy policies, ensuring that instructional materials and assessments are culturally relevant, ensuring that the open educational resources used in the course comply with applicable laws and terms of use, addressing potential gender bias and also underrepresentation in the engineering fields, and then lastly, incorporating case studies and scenarios that would challenge the students to critically analyze ethical dilemmas and develop principled leadership skills. Next, we'll talk through the ethical impact statement. The ethical framework that we use for this project was going to be the learner experience design model. The learner experience design model provides the ideal framework for this engineering course by placing a strong emphasis on creating immersive, engaging, and culturally inclusive learning experiences. This learner-centric model approach aligns perfectly with the needs to accommodate the diverse backgrounds, proficiencies, and learning preferences, not only with the American students, but also with our international students as well. Also, the learner experience design model focuses on delivering transformative learning experiences that inspire behavioral changes that is well suited for cultivating the technical mastery that is required for military engineers as well. Some of the ethical concerns that we have here, we got 5 of them, and I'm not going to talk through them in depth here because we'll go through them a little bit later throughout this presentation, but they are data privacy and security being one of them, also looking at your cultural biases and stereotypes, some dual use concerns as well, and then tying it up with intellectual property and copyright issues, and then accessibility and inclusion as some of the ethical concerns that we had for this project. Going into the ethical impact assessment, starting in the middle of the chart, we have potential ethical issues, and then off on the right side, we have our mitigations for those ethical issues. And then on the far left, which talks to the stakeholders, those are going to be some of the people that are going to be impacted by some of those potential ethical issues. And so the first one that we highlight here again is going to be that data privacy and security. And that's going to be the collection of personal and sensitive information from the military personnel, from the students, and also from the organizations there as well. And so one of the mitigation strategies that we have for that is to develop a robust data privacy and security policy that aligns with relevant regulations there as well. And so attached to this presentation is going to be a user data agreement that we created for the students, and also our data privacy that we created for the courses. Going down to the cultural biases being another potential ethical issue, one way to mitigate that would be honestly to conduct cultural competency training for the instructional design team. And that's going to be really critical because, again, not only do we have American students that's going to be a part of this course, but it's going to host potentially up to 16 different other host nations or international nations there as well. It's going to be inside of this course. So it's going to be really critical for the instructional design team to understand like who's at play and what cultural biases that could creep into the course unintentionally and how to identify them so that we could mitigate them. Other potential ethical issues that we have is going to be the dual use concerns that we have there, and then also down there the intellectual property and copyright there as well. So some of the mitigations for the dual use concerns is going to be to integrate modules on ethical decision making, professional codes of conduct, and dual use dilemmas that we have there. So that way the information that the students are getting inside of the engineer course, whether intentional or unintentional, that is not misused in any unethical way or that in a way that could cause harm. And then to mitigate the intellectual property and copyrights is really establishing a clear guideline and training on copyright laws and fair use policies, and then making sure that we give credit basically where credit is due for the things that we're using inside of the instructional designs that we have. And then for the last two potential ethical issues and the mitigation strategies for those, accessibility and the inclusion one, really just involving our accessibility experts and advisors in the instructional design process to make sure that we're following all the appropriate guidelines there. And then for the social and environmental responsibilities, incorporating modules on sustainability and engineering practices, and also the social responsibilities that we have as well. So for the environment, and making sure that we also follow a lot of the EPA laws and stuff that we have out there. So incorporating some of that stuff into the design to make sure that we're being fully inclusive on the social and the environmental responsibilities when it comes to engineering. Next, we're going to talk through the ethical use of information. And first, we're going to talk through the content use portion of it, and then we will talk through the using learner data also throughout the course. And so things that we're going to analyze, we're going to talk through really 5 things that we want to analyze for content usage or information inside of this course. One of them being copyright and fair use is something that we want to analyze as we're going through. We want to make sure that we do the attribution and analyze that for the information that we're using. Also, ethical oversight, data security and privacy again, and then lastly, accuracy and credibility are things that we're going to analyze for the content that we're going to be using throughout the course. And I think that those 5 things that we just talked about are going to be really critical in ensuring that we ethically design a course that meets all the appropriate laws and policies that we have to follow there. Some of the strategies that we can employ to ensure that we're, applying the ethical use of content information that we're using for this course is going to be applying ethical content supply chains that vets all third-party resources and vendors and partners based on stringent ethical criteria to help mitigate the risk in using the content early on in the course as we design it. Also, implementing ethical content labels or trust marks that clearly signal alignment with established ethical standards. And really what that'll do is it'll boost transparency, and it'll also increase learner confidence there as well, knowing that the information that's being presented to them has been vetted and is fully in accordance with the laws and the policies there. Also, exploring emerging technologies, solutions such as blockchain content credentials, also digital watermarks, and robustly sourcing content metadata to strengthen the authenticity and tracking the materials that we're using as well. And then last 2 things that we can do here in terms of strategies for ethical content use is from a cultural standpoint, fostering an environment where ethical content discussions occur spontaneously by embedding ethical prompts into standard development processes, which may further ingrain ethical mindsets. And then lastly there, trying ethical content metrics into the performance evaluations and providing incentives for ethical behavior modeling, which could also drive accountability there as well. So now we're transitioning into the ethical use of learner data. And whenever you're using the learner experience design model, it really requires a lot of learner data collection in order to be able to tailor the course to fit the needs of the learners there. And so we want to identify data collection policies or practices. And so some of the things that we're looking for is going to be demographics. We're going to be looking for prior knowledge and experience. Also looking for learner preferences and different the learning styles that the students have there. Also, as we're going through the course, looking at performance data, engagement and interaction data, and then also looking at the accessibility needs of the learners there as well, in terms of identifying data collection practices for the learner data that we're going to be using in this course. Some of the privacy risks that we're going to be facing is going to be re-identification of individuals, unauthorized secondary uses of data outside of the defined purposes, data security vulnerabilities, lack of user awareness and consent, ethical issues, such as biases and discrimination, and then also regulatory compliance violations around data privacy laws. Some of the things that we can do in order to mitigate some of these privacy concerns is going to be de-identification and making things anonymous as we go through the course as well. So that way there's no name or no person attached to the data that's being collected. Also minimizing the data that is being collected, and also giving the purpose of the data that's being collected there as well. Increasing robust data security measures, such as controlled access using passwords or encryption or increased network security. Also by having a comprehensive governance and training on what is being collected and how to store it and how to use it inside of the course as well. Also, giving privacy notices and rights management to the learners, letting them know like, hey, you don't have to provide certain data to the instructional designers or to an admin, and letting them know at any point that they could withdraw from certain things. Doing our due diligence to thoroughly vet third-party vendors and supply chains that we may be using there as well. And then also the ethical AI governance there as well. So if there's any AI platforms being used inside of the course, just making sure that we do our due diligence to make sure that it's fully secured for the users and also for the designers there as well, and just being transparent and explaining the AI design model and how it affects the learning for the students there. Next, we're going to talk through the inclusive design portion of the course, or for our project that we have here. And we want to focus on multiple means of engagement. And this is to foster a sustained motivation and engagement across the diverse engineering learning objectives. The instructional design should incorporate multiple means of engagement through various activities, interactions, and contextual relevance there as well. So learners could engage in collaborative scenario-based challenges mimicking real-world solutions that they may encounter there. That's just one example of one of the forms of engagement that we could have there. The next thing that we want to do to make sure this course is fully inclusive is to have multiple means of representation. And so really what that's looking at is ensuring that the complex concepts and skills that are outlined in objectives are tailored to the diverse learning preferences of the students that we have there. And so one of the ways that we can do that is by evaluating environmental impacts that might utilize interactive data visualizations and simulations, allowing the exploration of variables alongside plain language reports, conveying key takeaways there as well. And then lastly, I'm going to talk through multiple means of action and expression. And so that's looking back at how do the students get to demonstrate what they've learned there. And so one of the ways that we can do this is just by having low stakes formative assessments that uses dynamic task simulation tools that could safely allow for learners to apply the concepts and receive data-driven feedback on their proficiencies there. In order to ensure social justice and bias mitigation for this project, some of the strategies that we can apply is going to be the mitigation or the implementation of bias training and reviews, applying the universal design principles, and then also conducting ongoing bias evaluations, and then lastly, fostering just overall an inclusive environment. So some of the benefits of integrating all of these components together it overall enhances the learning experience. It reduces biases and stereotypes, and just overall it ensures that we're complying with the regulations that